Today's podcast is brought to you by Stealth Outdoors. The off-season's a great time to rehab your gear, so head on over to Stealth Outdoors at www.stealthoutdoors.com to pick up some climbing stick wraps, cam buckle covers, platform cable wraps, or stealth strip rolls for all of your miscellaneous silencing needs. Today's show is also made possible by Hunting Beast Gear, innovators in mobile hunting gear and the designers of the Beast Sticks and Beast Stand. Check out the latest products at www.huntingbeastgear.com. And now, on to the podcast.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Hunting Beast Report. I'm your host, Scott Biskobing, and I'm joined with Dan Infault. As always, Dan, how are you on this fine Tuesday evening?
I'm alive.
That's always the answer, always the answer. I mean, we're just getting over Memorial Day. How was your Memorial Day weekend?
It's good. Pounded a turkey. Some of you might have seen the video, but not very many people watched it. Probably busy eating brats and drinking beers. It only got 3,500 views. It's a pretty good hunt, too.
Yeah, well, so there you guys have it. There's a video out there for you to check out. Dan getting another turkey. What are your thoughts? I know you kind of touched on it in a post yesterday about Memorial Day. How do you feel? I've seen some news reports. I was listening to sports radio coincidentally today and one of the guys talking on there was upset at the Brewers game that there was, like, during the national anthem, especially during Memorial Day or on Memorial Day, the amount of people not taking their hats off and just kind of being, not even really showing any sort of attention to the anthem or the moment, and especially on a day like Memorial Day. What are your thoughts on that as far as, like, the way things have changed a little bit? And I know it's a little bit off topic when it comes to hunting, but still curious just to get some of your thoughts on that.
There's two ways of looking at that. There's two groups. There's one group that's come to hate America, Memorial Day, and things like that, and thinks our veterans are crap. And there's another group that has just forgotten about them. And it's sad. The forgotten group bothers me more because I could care less about the other group. But, as parents and grandparents and stuff, we need to stop during those events, their cookouts and things like that, and at least spend a little bit of time talking about our relatives,
our forefathers,
that died in battle. I've got an Uncle Henry that died. He went down in a submarine and never came back. They don't ever know what happened to him in World War II. My dad joined the war because of him, because he was scared to go. He got drafted and he didn't want to go and he was terrified. My dad said he'd go with him, and the recruiter promised they could go together and then separated them. And
wow.
Henry went down in a submarine, do some sort of mission, and was never seen again. And those stories need to be told, and the stories of the heroes and what they went through and what war was like, so that kids know that their freedom isn't free. I mean, when you have a long time of peace, you start to get a disrespect. You know what I mean? There should be a lot more respect. You look around at all the people that are missing a limb and stuff from war and battle. I mean, that's no joke. Think about living without your arm, or your eye, or
Right.
It's if you even live.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, not to start the show on a somber note or whatever, but I think some wise words there, and something that we all need to think about a little bit more. That this last weekend was, should have been more than just the barbecue and the nice weather and the kickoff to summer, if you will. But real quick, we had a couple comments and questions that were coming through even before the show started here. So I just want to pull up one here from Nate Peterson. And he asks, how many big bucks has Dan shot with his 30-06 pump? Also, what is your thoughts of hunting up in the Chequamegon National Forest?
Big bucks with the pump, probably 10, 15. I probably killed 100 deer with that thing. I've been using it since the 80s. That was my grandfather's gun. It was passed to my dad. My dad shot one deer with it, an 8-pointer, the only deer he ever shot that I know of. And he passed it to my oldest brother, Jerry, the one who just passed away recently. And he cherished that gun. He shot a couple big bucks with it, and then went to Vietnam. And when he came back, he wanted nothing to do with guns or anything to do with weapons, and he gave them all to me.
Sure. So quite a few. It's been a real deer slayer.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, as you guys know, we are joined tonight with our guest. You guys know him very, very well. Longtime host of the Beast Report. Let's go ahead and bring Josh on.
Hey, Josh.
Hey,
how are you, bud?
Good.
Welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Although you guys just did a show the other week, together again.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago on my channel. So
yeah, and I had Lou on my channel at the same time.
Oh, and, really?
Yeah. Lou made a few jabs. Made a like whose show was going to be better. I told Dan, because he said, I'm doing a show the same time as you and Lou are with Josh. I'm like, don't worry, I don't think you're gonna lose any views to me over on the Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoor Show with Lou. But nonetheless, so how are things been?
Good, man. Been doing a lot of fishing, and weather's been not hot yet, which is good. So,
you all done turkey hunting?
Yeah, we were done May the 11th or something like that was our last day. So,
man, I couldn't get on any turkeys up until towards the weekend, and I had a tag and Ricky had a tag, and then the weekend, one of the fans just said, "Hey, come hunt with me." And I said, "What the hell? I want to see some new terrain." And I went and hunted with him. And then when I came back, that giant tom I've been hunting behind my house, the one that Dave blew the tree in half, that one has been killable every day all weekend. And I call Ricky, and he's like, "I'm sick." And I'm like, "All right." Yeah. The only day I don't think we could have killed it was Monday. But, man, Saturday and Sunday, it kept going in and out of this funnel where it's like only one way in, one way out.
Yeah.
Like, I could just sit up there and kill it. And nobody wrong with a tag.
Dang. Yeah. Turkey season around here was rough for me. I just didn't get out very, very much. We got the big flood right before turkey season started, and kind of flooded out all around my house here. And then I just didn't put in. We only get 3 weekends here, and I just didn't put in the effort around here to find the birds again. I had a bunch of them located before season started, but I killed one down in Tennessee, so I didn't go empty-handed.
Did you do like a double with Patrick or something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We both killed one that morning, second morning of season. So that was fun. I love turkey hunting by myself or whatever, but man, turkey hunting really is fun when you got someone else with you.
That last one I got, we went all the way across this big field to the end. It was like the last spot we were going to call at. We hunted this whole property to the end and butted up right against some public land. We were on private in a field, but the whole surrounding was public. Mm-hmm. And we came up to the end, and I'm like, well, looking at Onyx, I thought that's where the birds would be because it had roost trees and stuff, and otherwise it was pretty open terrain, and we didn't see any birds anywhere. So we set up there, and I set up in a way where I was like looking for the birds to come from where I expected, and we had already walked through everything behind me. And then I called a couple times, and I used a box call. I really like the box call because it brings them from so far. It's so loud, I can really, if they hear it and they're in the mood, they're coming, So I called a couple times, put the call down, and then I'm just sitting there, and I look over my shoulder, and here's this one coming from this like mile of corn. It's like, where the hell did this thing come from? We just walked through all that, and it's coming and coming, and I'm skylit, so it's looking at me on the side of that tree, and there's nothing I can do, and I'm like facing this way, and the bird's over here, and guy I was with just like talking to me pretty loud, and I'm like, there's a bird coming. And I'm trying to get the gun up and get the camera turned around and stuff. And when I shot that thing, I was using that 3.5 inch TSS, and I don't know what it is about those loads, but man, they kick. Maybe
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
yeah,
heavier,
yeah,
maybe it's the heavier load or whatever. But I've
yeah,
used 3.5 before where it kicks, but not like that. And I had
yeah.
to turn funny like this to shoot, and I had my thumb over the gun, and I shot like this, and it was like getting punched in the nose by Tyson. And
You're lucky you didn't break your nose on
he was
that.
kind of off of my shoulder, so I got a big bruise right here. And it comes up, and a bird jumps up in the air, lands down, and takes off running. And I'm like, crap. So I take another shot, and I'm still seeing stars from this first shot. And on the second one, I could see an impact on that shot too. And I got up and chased it down, and I found it about 30 yards into the woods. I heard it flopping, and I got over there, and it died running. There was actually a blood trail going to it.
Yeah.
It was weird. I never had a blood trail turkey before. But in hindsight, I thought it was about a 50-yard shot, which ain't bad. And when I went to where the bird was and looked where I shot, I think it was over 60.
Oh, there you go.
So,
Well, that's where that 3.5 inch TSS
Yeah,
is
yeah,
going to come into play there for sure.
yeah.
but man, I thought I broke my nose.
Are you
My
still
nose
shooting that Nova or Vanilla Nova?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
And you think that heavy gun wouldn't kick as much either, because it's a pretty heavy gun.
Yeah.
But man, it was literally like being punched in the nose by Tyson. It was bad.
Oh, you got him. Whatever.
Yeah.
So 2 down for the season, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, it's wrapping up here right now for all of us here. And I just saw a meme the other day. It was like a Forrest Gump, after he's ran across. You guys might have seen it or whatever, where it's like spring turkey season. I think I'll go home now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, for some guys, it's just an absolute marathon for them.
Oh,
I got a guy in my team that has assisted and helped call and just been out all season long, 17 turkeys this season here in Wisconsin. I'm like, he's like, yeah, I'm over it right now. He's like, I am done turkey hunting. He's like, it was a great season, but I'm done. So
we just don't get the opportunity in Indiana. I called one in for a buddy, and he killed it opening weekend here in Indiana. But we just get 3 weekends and one bird, so
sure.
sometimes you don't get a lot of opportunities, or you only kill one. So if you kill one that opening week, you're kind of done for the year.
And that's usually how I am. I'm usually good with just one bird.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need a whole bunch of turkeys.
Right. Gotta get some scouting too.
Right. It's a good reason to be out there. I usually find a couple sheds while I'm out there as well. So that's always a bonus.
I can't really concentrate on scouting while I'm turkey hunting. As a matter of fact, I don't see many turkeys out in the swamps of knee-deep water.
No, not really.
Not really. Not many.
Weird. You'd think they'd just be all over the place in there. All right. Well, with that said, I think we should probably get off the turkey talk here, because I think everybody's here to talk deer hunting. And, one of the reasons we're bringing Josh on tonight is to talk about some of his successes over the years. And yes, I know it was pointed out even at the beginning here, there was a misspelling on the thumbnail there. I have since gone back and corrected it. I apologize. We were really trying to scramble to get this show together here for you guys tonight. So I'll do better. Maybe. We'll see. But anyways, so Josh, you've had some success over the years. I know a lot of you viewers know Josh, probably even better than I do. But I'd just like to know a little bit about your background real quick, if you could briefly, just kind of like, when did you get into bow hunting? When did you, when did you kind of just get involved in the outdoors? Was it something you were brought up with, or something that you started out on your own?
Oh yeah, no. My whole family are big hunters. My grandpa, my dad, my uncles, they all hunted. So I've never really known any better since I was little. I mean, I got pictures of me with deer like when I was a couple years old. My uncles or my dad killed one, and they let me take a picture with it. And so that's how it started. Is my whole family? They still, they all still hunt. My uncle's a taxidermist, and they're more general hunters though. Like they do a lot of different types of hunting. Um, growing up, we had rabbit dogs and we squirrel hunted and fished and did kind of a little bit of everything. And my dad was more serious of a deer hunter than everybody else for the most part in the family, like as far as holding off for big bucks and that kind of thing. Definitely got that from him. I can vividly remember like being at home waiting for dad to come home from deer hunting and just couldn't wait to hear if he got one or not. And then I got a summit climber for my 8th birthday or 8th Christmas when I was 8 years old, and killed my first buck when I was 9.
Wow.
That was with a shotgun, with just like a smooth bore 20 gauge shotgun. That's what we could only use shotguns in Indiana at that time frame. And I shot my first deer, which it was a doe fawn with a compound when I was 11. So
Wow.
pretty young, really. But when I was 11, I was like the same size I am now. I was one of those kids. I didn't grow past 8.
Peaked at 11.
Yeah.
You had the same beard too, I'm sure.
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Hey,
there's a picture coming up here.
sorry for taking off topic, but speaking of beards, have you seen Eric lately, Dan?
Oh my God, yeah. You almost showed that picture on here. I mean, he looks like Ted from the Hunting Public. What the hell happened to that guy? He scared me when he sent me that picture. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was shocked.
Are you trying to pull up a picture?
I'm trying to find it, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, though. My very first buck ever was also with a 20 gauge smooth bore, single shot, hinge action. Oh, there we go.
That's Eric Jeske in the videos. If you don't recognize him.
Yeah, it's going to be summertime.
I understand.
Beards get a little warm.
You got to remove the burdocks and the ticks, but that is bad.
Whoa. Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. And quite honestly, I've been thinking about doing it myself, but then there'd be a whole lot of this double chin action showing on
Eric's was down to here.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, Eric's has always had that beard forever. It's just hard to see him without that.
Yeah, it's crazy how much a big beard changes, and then when you shave it off, like you take 10 years off your life at least.
Yeah,
whether there's gray in there or not.
I mean, it's just such a difference. He went from like ZZ Top to Prince.
Yeah. I thought maybe he shaved it off in remembrance of Phil Robertson or something. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah. Tim comments here. He goes, "Is Eric in witness protection?"
Oh. Anyway, what were we talking about?
We're talking about you and hunting.
Oh.
Well, let's get into it here. You sent me pictures of 4 different bucks that you killed.
Yeah.
And that you selected 4 that we would talk about tonight. And what we kind of want to talk about is we want to hear the story behind them. If you had any history with them, the tactics you used, just kind of give us, how this goes. Give us a rundown on these bucks and, how you got it done. So Let's start out with number 1 here. And speaking of clean shaven and fresh faced right there.
Yeah.
How old are you in that picture?
I was probably 18 or 19 when I shot that deer. Something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look young in that picture.
Yeah, I know. I was.
You got history with that buck?
No, not that one. That one, back then, man, I didn't have trail cameras when I was young or nothing like that. Like we didn't have them. I just didn't have a ton of money, and just something we didn't feel the need to ever use when I was young.
Sure.
So now, when you're that age and you shoot a buck like that, I mean, not many people are back in that time frame were shooting bucks like that.
Mm-hmm.
What put you in the spot? How did you end up in the spot where that buck came through, and why?
Okay, so of course, I was in school. It's October. I killed this deer. This was an early October deer too. Like well, you can kind of see he was rubbing trees and stuff. It's like, I don't know. I think I killed him like October 12th. I'd have to like look that up for sure, but it wasn't a rut buck. And I had went and scouted. We had some public behind our house, and I could access the public through the land that was behind my house. So if you can imagine, like, my house was here. There was a farmer's ground, and then the farmer's ground had a public land that bounced backed up to it back in there. And I right I, right inside of the property line was like a marsh, which we didn't have a lot of marshes we don't have a lot of marshes in Indiana, but this property had one, and there was always, of course, deer in it. And I had found fresh rubs that week in that back there by that marsh, and where that marsh came out, it made a point, and then it like came around to go like the point dried up, and it came into the woods to go around the farmer's field. They didn't tend to go. They would, they had a obviously to go out to the crop fields, but they would tend to like circle around to come out the backside of the crop field, and it just made it like a perfect pinch point right there, and that's where those rubs were. And that day, the reason I put this buck up here is because it like rained for 2 days straight after I went scouting back in there, and it was raining at like 3 p.m. It was still pouring down rain, and I was just like, I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm going to go. I'm going to get soaked, blah, blah, blah. And my dad talked me into going. And I went. I had that same climber that I had when I was 8 years old. And I went back there, and I sat right outside that little marsh, and that where the field, which was a cornfield, and then the where it kind of pinched down to the marsh right there. And it stopped raining at like 3:45, and I think I shot that deer at like 4 o'clock. He came out of that marsh right after it stopped raining, and he was rubbing trees, and he made a scrape right before I shot him. I shot him like 12 yards, and the thing actually ran like probably 150 yards towards my house and died. It was like perfect. But like a lot of people, like, it was pouring down rain. I mean, talking about like just you got drenched, and like 95% of people probably wouldn't have even thought about going deer hunting. And I think like there's a lot of things that came into play there. Was like, he got up early out of it rained, it stopped raining. He got up early, and he was like on a mission to go and check those rubs and those scrapes or whatever. And you can see in his antlers there, he was rubbing trees as he was coming into my stand. I actually got him mounted. I got that stuff preserved in his, that
Nice.
tree stuff. Yeah.
That's
preserved
cool.
on it. But he was a giant deer. I don't know how old he was. Obviously I didn't have any history with him, but he, field dressed like 236.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't weigh him with guts and stuff in him, but he field dressed 236. He was old deer, and you
Wow.
kind of see his head's real big and blocky, and I didn't take.
That's a big body deer.
Yeah,
236 dress is really big.
yeah,
Usually they don't get high brows until after 3 too, and that's got some pretty high brows on it.
yeah. He would have scored a lot. He just had real short G2s and whatnot, but he didn't have any length to his rack at all. But he like has this real cool. His rack like twists out. I don't know. You can see it real good on that left side.
Yeah.
It like twists out the other way.
Like a witch's finger. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's real wide. I had that scent lock suit on too, so that helped a lot.
So
That was your confidence in that moment, though, didn't it?
you think he was bedding
Dude, I wore that thing everywhere. I don't know. It was probably something Michael Waddell wore. Is probably why I bought it, I'd say. Back then, in those days.
You think you were close to his bedding? You think he was in that marsh?
Yes. 100%. And another thing is like, I got in there, like, I'm talking this little marsh is probably, 60 yards from where, and it's not like a Wisconsin marsh. Like, that's probably a bad way to describe this place. It's not a big, like, 40-acre marsh, 50-acre marsh. It's like an acre maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't, like,
we call those potholes. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But he, I was only, I don't know, 60 or 70 yards from that marsh. Um, and then I got set up when it was raining too. And you could hear nothing in the woods but raindrops. With them climbers and stuff, they're not like real quiet. I mean, you can be fairly quiet with them, but not like you can with the stuff we have out now.
Right.
So that was another thing that I think helped me on this hunt a lot. Um, was just but yeah, he had like those deer that have necks that have like rolls on them. You can kind of see it there. He
Yeah.
just giant
Yeah, you
deer.
can see that.
Hmm. And he's mounted in my living room. He just kind of towers over all the other ones as far as his body does.
Sure.
So
So,
did that spot pay off again after that?
yes, Maddie killed her first buck there. And let me think here. Did I kill my? No, I killed another deer back in that area, but not on that particular pinch. But I moved away shortly after this. I only lived up there until I was uh, 20, and I moved away. So, but we killed multiple deer back there in that little spot, though. I hit another one back there in the shoulder and didn't find it,
Okay.
but it was definitely a spot where you could probably go sit there in November and kill one every year if you needed to.
So up until that hunt, what else had you had shot? Anything in that size range or?
No, that was my biggest deer. I killed a pretty nice one the year before that, though. This, like at this age, when I was like 17, 18, that's when I really started killing decent deer. Um, I killed a couple of like, I killed some bucks before then this, but when I got to high school, that's when I really, when I could be on my own kind of thing is when I started, um, and I branched out on my own is when I started really focusing on, bigger
Because
deer.
we're
But I
talking.
grew up, I would get yelled at by my grandpa and stuff for not shooting deer. So like I wasn't a trophy hunter at all, and my grandpa wasn't either, and my uncles, my dad kind of was, but he didn't. He kind of just supported whatever. But my like only time my grandpa ever yelled at me was whenever I passed a little 7-pointer one time, and he saw me pass it, and he got so mad at me, like you may not see another one. He's yelling at me. It's like all right,
Uh, I've been on the receiving end of those
yeah,
tongue lashings myself. And not
uh,
so long ago either.
yeah.
I
But
guess I got a question. Go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say, it seems like that's about when you started what we always call that like 10, 15 year, where you really
yeah,
start your peak of hunting. This is like the beginning of it, right?
yeah, it was for sure, and it really, it kind of started when I got my driver's license. I just started to do my own thing. Um, so I killed. I think when I was the year before this, like I said, I killed a pretty nice 8-pointer. It's actually on the Hunting Beast channel. I got it on video back then. It's I shot a doe, and this other buck came walking in after the doe. I shot the doe. I killed both of them, but that was I put this one on here because there was some strategy to it, and like I scouted it
Yeah.
out. The ones before this were always just like,
Just luck, random.
yeah, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, kind of
Sure.
thing, or
Yep.
we were going where our dad told us to go, or whatever.
Right.
Um, but this one was more of a hanging hunt.
Yep. Cool buck.
Hmm.
All right. Shall we move on to number 2?
Sure.
All right.
I think this one was I put this one in here. It's one of the bigger deer I've killed with a bow. It's not the biggest, but this was an out of state hunt, and I wanted to put one on from out of state on here. And this was a good one on the beast too.
Mhm.
But so this was a rut hunt buck. That other buck was, like I said, it was I think October 12th. This one was November
Sure.
4th when I killed this one
Mhm.
um, up in Wisconsin, in a
I remember
really
that hunt.
in a really pressured area. This is a really good deer. It has 13 scoreable points, and it just wasn't super wide or anything. But this was like me and some buddies were hunting together, um, And I guess that's kind of what I was wanting to, like, I had help with this deer out of state. Like some buddies of mine, we were all hunting the same area, and my buddy, we call him Zank, Brad Zank, he saw a really nice buck in this particular big marsh, um, and we kind of went in there and tag teamed it together, like tried to figure out where would be two good spots where we could go and set up on. And you know, this wasn't even the deer he ended up seeing. This was a different deer, but um, the the marsh uh, kind of made a typical marsh point that goes in. It didn't come out; went into the marsh. The woods did, and there's a river that went through the marsh that kind of just pinched everything down right there in where the marsh came out of the into the woods. And then my buddy Zank, he went down to where he saw that big buck the night before and set up in the same general area. And like it was like a slow hunt. Like that week was pretty slow, and I didn't really have super high hopes. It was kind of later in the hunt. This was kind of our like, let's just go in here. Maybe one of us will kill one in here. And yeah, didn't see a deer until right before dark. And that deer, this I heard something kind of splashing in the marsh. And I looked over to my right, and he was coming out of the marsh. And I didn't know how good he was exactly, but it was on an out of state hunt, and he was good enough. I knew I was going to shoot him. And he kind of circled around the point. He didn't come up the point, which I don't know, Dan. Maybe you can speak on this a little more. But like, um, if the point goes into the marsh like this, I was setting out here on the point, and he
Mm-hmm.
actually around the point and came around behind me. Um,
Sure.
and I ended up. Luckily, I was in a small tree. And sometimes in the marshes you don't have very big trees, and I was just in a little bitty tree. I was, maybe the size of between a softball and a volleyball sized tree. And I kind of had to, and of course I had a camera arm and all that other crap that goes with doing this stuff. So I was adjusting that around the back of the tree, and I kind of just hung out of the bee stand, and I smoked him at like 26 yards, I think is how far he was. Um, but like if sometimes on like when you're out of state hunting, like, it takes a group effort to get on deer sometimes, and that's what this was. Like I wish my buddy Zank would have killed one like that, because it was he did all the kind of the work for it per se. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but um,
So I
that's
remember you telling me how hard that hunt was. Like you
yeah,
kept
it was
running
slow.
other hunters and stuff, and you were
Yeah,
like at your wits' end. But one of the key things about that hunt that I remember from you relaying it to me when you first shot that buck was how you stood through all the crap that was thrown at you.
yeah,
So what how was the hunting pressure and stuff that
yeah. There
to
was a
that?
lot of people running around. It's in a very like populated area in Wisconsin. I'm not going to say exactly where it was, but there's a lot of hunters in that area. Um, and at first, I was seeing like a ton of dinks, like just a ton of little bitty bucks. Um, Nothing over a year and a half, or less. And I just like finally I got frustrated with myself after a couple hunts. I'm like, I am not in the right spots. Like I'm doing something wrong, because there's just too many small bucks around here. This is not where these big bucks are. And
And
that's
that's
when
key because a lot of guys need that. They like need that like I got to see deer thing, and you had it in your mind enough to know that I'm in the wrong spot. Seeing deer isn't what you were there for.
yeah, there was many vehicles in the parking lot of the where I killed this deer at. There's a bunch of them,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody was there where we were at. Um, and yeah, so then I started kind of jumping into different spots where I felt like maybe a big buck would be little overlooked spots, and that's kind of what we focused on for the most part, was overlooked spots. And then when my buddy Zank got into these bucks, which there was more than one in there, that's when we went in there, and this one came out to me. Um, so it is what it is. Like when you're out of state, it's hard to kill a deer out of state, especially like I hadn't had a lot of experience up in this area. And sometimes it just takes like some tips from someone or someone to help you along the way to get one underneath your belt up there. And then it's like, then you can kind of, okay, this is how he acted in this marsh. Let's go. Cause I don't have, I mean, I guess that last buck I shot technically out of a marsh, but not these big marshes like you guys have.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then you learn something. You're like, you got to, your learning curve is just, it can be so long if you don't like take tips from some people sometimes, you know, or allow some people to help you out. And then, you know, that's what this was. I mean, I could learn something if I didn't kill this deer, but it's a lot more fun to learn when you're killing deer, you know.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Dan, do you have any other comments on buck number
What
2?
was the sign like right where you picked the tree? Why did you pick the tree where you picked it?
Okay.
Just because of the point, or was there a sign there telling you there
No,
was?
it was just because of the point, and it was one of those hunts, Dan. Like I went in there with my buddy Zank, you know, um, and he had seen that big buck before that night before, and he's like, go over here, and he hadn't. I don't know for sure, but I don't think he had been over here in this area. And I got in there, and I was pretty disappointed. I was like, man, I don't see where these deer. You know, I can see some trails and stuff. And there's actually a point probably 100 yards down the marsh from me, and I went there first on the map. That looked better, and I got there, and it was just, I don't know if someone hunted there or what, but it was just, it was dead. And then I'm kind of in a hurry. Then, you know, I'm like, crap, I got to go to somewhere else. So that's when I kind of buzzed around to this spot, and it had a little more sign, but I did not see the big buck sign. Now maybe if I would have pushed into the marsh, you
Mm-hmm.
know, into some of that stuff, maybe I would have, but I didn't. I just like kind of trusted where I was at, and the you know, that river there helped me a lot. Like it helped. It kind of like, okay, they're probably not going to cross that river. So at least I know if they're coming along that river, I'll be able to see them, or they'll have to come in the woods right here.
You know, a lot of my better hunts, especially at home terrain,
Mm-hmm.
just based on terrain. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? You're going into a spot, you know, there's a buck in the area, and you hunt terrain, and there's no real sign. You know,
yeah,
it's like when you hunt heavy buck sign, it's usually the immature, like 2 year olds that are doing it. I mean,
yeah,
which can still be decent bucks, but the real big bucks, a lot of times they come from spots with no big buck sign.
yeah, yep. That's what this was. Like I said, I didn't have like a lot of high hopes on this hunt, and then I mean, I didn't see a deer until the last this. You know, I killed him. You know, by the time I shot him and got down, it was dark, and we actually ended up going back to the house before we went and tracked him. He only went
Mhm.
like 40 yards. I didn't see him go down, but he didn't go very far at all, 50 yards. Um, so,
Did you feel like you made a good shot?
yeah, and it sounded really good, like on
Yeah.
video and stuff. I mean, it was one of those deals where the video wasn't great. It was all the way zoomed out, and he was 26 yards, which looks like he's 60 whenever you're,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, when you're filming.
Right.
Um, you could see I hit him, and he kicked and all that, and it sounded like a balloon popping. So he didn't go very far at all. In fact, I shot him, and he like jumped a few steps and then stopped, and then he just death run and died. But in those marshes, you really can't. I mean, I couldn't tell how far he went or anything.
Yeah.
So we backed out and got a sled and went from
Mhm.
there. And it was with like four of my buddies. It was great. I mean, it was the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
The
always
best.
makes it more exciting too. When you get somebody to celebrate with,
Yeah. And then I mean,
celebrate the
like
success.
just like when we killed that deer, Dan, in Wisconsin, uh,
Hmm.
Western Wisconsin, that was awesome. I didn't put that in here
That
because
was an awesome hunt.
yeah, because I figured. I mean, we talked about that deer, or people have seen that deer a bunch, but
Yeah. I'll never forget that because I did not have faith in that buck. I'm usually the one that has the faith. And I was like, we see this thing in the open field at night coming out, and you're like, I'm going to kill it in the morning. And I'm like, you're going to what? And he's like, yeah, it's probably coming from down here. And I'm thinking, I think it came from the hills. You're like, I don't know. The hills are a little ways away in the field. And I'm like, okay. And he went in there and sure enough killed him the next day.
uh, yeah. But this deer hunt's on the channel too. I can't remember what it's called or anything. You have to look through there. But
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to buck number 3 here.
okay, this is one of my favorite hunts. This is a small deer, but I wanted to tell this story because it's cool. Um, this year, I want to say this was like 2000 and maybe 17 or I don't know, something like that, somewhere in that time frame. Um, I had like killed a deer with my bow most years before this, and I didn't get with during bow season this year. And I was super frustrated with myself, like just having one of those years where nothing went right. I think I wounded one, just a rough year, And I had scouted this one area, Charlie Swamp. Then it's not called Charlie.
I know Charlie Swamp well.
Yeah, we that's not actually what it's called. That's just what our me and Dan's code name for it is. Um, but Charlie Swamp is bow only. You can't gun hunt in there. And I was always like, man, I bet during like if you wait like a week after gun season and go into this area, I was like, man, the bucks have to be in there. That to be the pressure pushes them in there because I'm like, I don't think many people are going to be bow hunting during gun season, or maybe a few, but not a ton. And I was frustrated and kind of over it. And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna go and with my bow and go into Charlie Swamp and just see what's in there. And I had some bedding areas that I had like marked on X that I'd scouted in there before. And so I made my way, and this was like November 20th. It was during the middle of gun season here in Indiana. That's why I had that orange hat on. And so I'm kind of going through the woods. It's raining. It's like 11 a.m. It's raining, and I get almost to this bedding area, and I think I like catch movement in it, and I pull up my binoculars, and sure enough, this buck is laying in a bed inside that bedding area right there, and just like on the transition of the bedding area, like a lot of them bed, um, he's bedding right there. It's like the transition of a hardwoods that has a bunch of greenbrier, and then just like a clear cut type little area. And he didn't see me. I was probably 100 yards from him at this moment in time, not quite that far, probably 70 yards from him when I saw him. And so I got down and I got on my belly and I belly crawled up to that deer in the rain through the woods until I got to about 20 yards. And he was laying in a brush pile, like behind a log. And I laid there. I got up to my knees, like kind of hunched down on my knees as low as I could, just so I could get my bow up, And I just sat there and waited and waited and waited. And finally, like I don't know, 2:30 or something, he just stood up out of his bed to stretch or whatever, and that's when I shot him. But again, it was one of those days where it was pouring down rain, but the elements allowed me to do that. Like I would probably never got within, I would never saw that deer. He probably would have got up and left before I got close to him if I didn't had a good rain that we had. It's kind of like Dan, the story of that great big deer you killed with a gun, where you just like you kind of walked up on him and shot him with a shotgun. That you like I could have just shot him with a bow. That's what this thing was. And yeah, this was another one where it was real super satisfying because it was like literally this was the bedding area that I end on hunting, this little clear cut, and he was in there. It worked out kind of fun. I got to sneak up, crawl up on him. I will say this, deer look a lot bigger whenever you're 20 yards on the ground with them than in a tree. I thought this deer was a good one. Like I really did.
It's not a bad buck at all, though.
No, but it wasn't. I had in my mind whenever I killed him that it was a good one, a real good one. No, it was fine deer, and it was fun. And it was later on in the season, for me.
At that point during gun season in a rainstorm, I'm sure he was plenty big enough.
Yeah, right.
At that point of the season.
Yeah. But I did something that nobody else was doing. Like I went hunting in the rain in a bow only spot, during gun season. I just was like thinking of places where, bucks would be right now. And that's where he was.
And as we go through these stories, you see this trend of that when you get a good buck, you're always doing something different. You're always, thinking about something going on, and you're making some plan, and you're making an effort at it. It's generally not those random spots where you're just playing to win, hopping from spot to spot. I'm sure you've killed some bucks like that too. But just like me, I've killed a lot of bucks just randomly rotating through stands or whatever.
Yeah.
But the giants and the big ones and the memorable ones come from those, tactical efforts.
Hmm. Yeah, it really is. I hurt my elbow this year too, and I had to go. I went and bought like a 50-pound, like one of those cheaper bear archery bows, and that's what I shot him with. I had some elbow issues that year. I remember that. I just looked at that bow right there. I'm like, when did I'm like, oh yeah, I bought that bow for this season. I couldn't handle a 70-pound bow.
That last bear I got, I ripped something in my shoulder. You actually
Yeah.
heard it rip when I was carrying the buckets, and we
Hmm.
literally turned my bow down with an Allen wrench to 40 pounds, and I had erratic flight because of the arrow weight and stuff, and
Yeah.
uh, and I couldn't even really practice. Once I had it shooting, I stopped because my arm hurt so bad, and I literally shot that bear like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That season hunting with that light bow kind of taught me a lot. Like I liked it. I kind of liked it a lot. Like I shot a 60-pound bow for a long time. Even last year, I shot a 65-pound bow. I haven't went back up to 70 pounds. It's just for whitetail. It's kind of nice because you never know when you're in these weird positions or you're laying on your belly on the ground. Like who knows? I crawling, crawling on my belly, and like I don't know if I would have been able to be stealthy enough with the. I definitely wouldn't have been able to that year. But like to be stealthy enough to pull back a bow, that's um, too heavy for you. You may
With
not.
modern equipment, 40, 50 pounds is plenty. You know,
Yeah,
uh, even that 300-pound bear that I shot with that ripped shoulder, that arrow smoked right through him and was stuck into the ground.
yeah, yep. Just I think a good broadhead and stuff, sharp broadheads. That's all you need now with the bows. Everything's so efficient now. But no,
This is way better than
yeah,
this.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, just in terms of overall movement in your stand too. I mean,
Mhm.
that's everything. A lot of times, I mean, you see guys practicing that, and they're having to reach them up to the sky, and like that's just not going to translate well into a tree.
and that bow was so like little. It was compact and it didn't have a big giant stabilizer on it or nothing. It just was. I enjoyed hunting with that bow.
Mhm.
Um,
So
I got
you,
to do it next
so
year.
this is the second buck here that we've talked about here tonight that is during the rain, correct?
Yeah,
Um, and
yeah,
then obviously there's a lot of advantages. It's always perplexing to me. I mean, yes, it's never really comfortable to hunt in the rain and that, but the advantages to it. And I think what kind of scares some guys off is they're afraid of that aired shot. And am I ever going to be able to track this deer in the rain? Like if I don't have a good blood trail, if I don't see this deer go down and that. And it's so I think it's interesting that, they have that mindset of like that doesn't really matter. I'm going to use the rain to my advantage, and not look at it as a disadvantage, regardless of, a bad shot or anything.
I would say like uh, over 95% of the bucks that I recovered were within 100 yards of the shot. You're going to find it.
Yeah.
Unless you make a horrible shot and you track it too soon, you're going to
Right.
find the buck regardless of a blood trail. So that just goes out the window with me. I mean, it's the
Sure.
same thing using a certain broadhead to get a certain blood trail. I
Hmm.
don't think the blood trail is really that critical, in my opinion. What do you think, Josh?
I don't even think about it.
Right.
I just, yeah, I don't know if that's right or wrong. It's just I don't even like. Rarely do I think about how far back I am either. I mean, maybe a little bit now that I have like responsibilities and stuff, but or more responsibilities. I'll think about like maybe I shouldn't shoot a doe way back here or something. But like if a big buck would walk by, I would.
Yeah,
Um,
at going on 60, I still never think about where I am until the arrow flies.
yeah, um, yeah. I mean, it's a good point. It definitely is. If it rains harder or something, it's definitely a bummer. Um, this deer took us a while to find, but it wasn't because of the rain. I actually went after him. I hit him a little bit back, not bad, just a touch back, and
Sure.
I was on the ground. I was excited, and I popped up, and he was still standing up in the woods. He was not doing good, but he died right there. But I ended up backing out and then coming back and getting him. This place has weird rules too. Like you got to be, I don't know. It's it's a kind of a difficult place to hunt because you got to follow a bunch of rules, but you can't be there after dark and all this kind of stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, this was like a fun hunt.
Yeah, I mean the rain is crazy. I've had some of my best hunts ever in terms of seeing mature bucks on their feet in absolute downpours.
Mm-hmm.
And that over the years, haven't always been able to get a shot, or for whatever reason, but just seeing deer move in that, like, especially when it gets to early November and that the rut is on, where I'll be in a funk for a few days, and then all of a sudden it's just downpouring rain, and I'm out there in this tree stand, and I'm seeing mature bucks moving all over the place, like completely unfazed. I mean, obviously they live in it, but
Yeah.
it's been interesting to see that over the years. So
My biggest 8 frame came in the middle of a thunderstorm.
yeah, up in a tree.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Well,
just an absolute downpour. It was black like night, and I was sick, so sick with the flu. I was puking and everything, and I was out there hunting anyways, and shot that thing. As a matter of fact, I was so sick when I shot it, I didn't even go track it. I went home, went to bed. I had this shaking, cold shiver, and I got up like 4 hours later, and the rain had stopped. I went out there and recovered the buck.
that's right. That was the one we were talking about last week.
Yeah.
One of the ones. Yeah. Well, that's why you're the
Well,
hunter.
rain is a great time to hunt. I mean, they'll get up and they'll move. They're not just going to lay there in the water forever.
Right.
I mean, because neither would you. I mean, if
Right.
they get a really good spot, they get under a tree or something, and they're not getting rained on. Maybe they do stay there till the rain ends. But in
Yeah.
a lot of cases, like heavy snow, heavy rain, it's downing on them. They'll get up and they'll move. You get movement at all different times of the day instead of just at night. Um, and you can get into those spots so easy and quiet. Usually there's a little wind associated. There's movement from the rain. There's no sound on the leaves or anything, and you can just get right up on those things. And there's so many spots that I actually wait for a rain because you look at them and the buck's got it so perfect. How do you get near them without them hearing you? And in the rain, you can do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I just love being in the woods and not making a sound. Like I just love that feeling of feeling like nothing knows I'm here right now,
Mhm.
Right, and you can still hunt with a bow in the rain, which is basically what you did for this buck. It wasn't
Yeah.
intended, but it's
Mhm.
basically what you did.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Shall we move on to our last buck here?
Sure. Yeah. So this is a big deer. This one scored like 153. It was a big deer, and I used to take horrible pictures of my deer, by the way. So sorry about some of these pictures, but this was just laying in my barn. So I had a time frame there. I don't know, 5 or 6 years in a row where I just hunted with a long bow, and I knew this deer. This deer was on some private I could hunt, and the private I can hunt. The deer do not stay there. Like they come and go, um, and it's the private's kind of there's two different pieces. It's like the farmer owns two different fields essentially down in there, um, and the I was on, we'll call it the north end field during I would say this was like no again that early part of November. And I had this deer had like I glassed him during the summertime, spotlighted him, all that fun stuff. Like I knew this deer was around. Um, so there's this big cornfield that's out there, and the only place I can hunt in this cornfield is just this little like the cornfield has a little point that goes out into it. It's probably, I'm going to say, like 100 acres wide and maybe 200 acres long. Really, really small, very mature. There's not a lot of cover in there. Um, I mean, as far as trees, it's all pretty big timber stuff. Um, but on the end of the point, about by the cornfield, there's a big creek that like follows the wood line and kind of goes back into the woods, makes like a little oxbow. The creek's not really big enough to like for the deer to not be able to cross. They can cross it pretty easily. Um, but anyway, I knew this deer was in the area. The neighbor that boats up to it really has a really good property where a lot of deer. Um, stay on him. But I went and set up this area. The buck this spot in this cornfield is a spot that it's one of those spots where on like November 3rd to the 5th, there's always a mature buck that comes through there.
Okay.
It's one of those things, whatever the same place, same time kind of spots. So it was in that time frame, and I was sitting in this. If you can imagine, like a V that comes out of the cornfield. Like there's a big woods in front of me, and the V comes out of the woods into this cornfield, and I'm sitting in the middle of this V, and I look to my kind of left and down the cornfield, and this buck pops out. And the cornfield, they just started picking it, so like the inrows were just out, and then they quit for whatever reason, and they just didn't come back to finish the cornfield. So he popped out of the inrows, and he started walking down the wood line, and he like turned into my V, the V that went into the woods, crossed the creek, and then came. I was in that Summit Climber again, same one that I had when I was 8, and literally was at 12 yards, and he had to I had my longbow, and I was just sitting there waiting, and he had to just take one more step behind him from a tree, and he was going to be 10 yards, just perfect for me. And for whatever reason, he just kind of did one of these and just stood there for a long time, and then just backed up, and then just walked right back where he came from. Went back out into the cornfield, and then went back into the big woods.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have. I don't think I would have got him with a compound either. But nonetheless, so I'm like, okay, I got his number here. I didn't have a whole lot of confidence he was going to come back where I was at, though. He spelled me. I mean,
he knew something. Yeah.
Yeah, he knew something wasn't right. But he went back to the north, which is where I can hunt. Now, if you fast forward a week, that's when our gun season starts here in Indiana. The farmer picked that cornfield in the meantime. And so I'm like, okay, that's a lot of cover that he just lost in that area, right? So this big creek that runs through this property that I was talking about that makes the oxbow, it continues on and goes back through the farmer's another field he owns to the south of where I was hunting at. And when I say far, like maybe a half a mile, and then there's another field that I can hunt that is his. And the only thing that is on this property is a creek and the trees that go down the side of the creek. The rest is just open fields. I mean, there's zero cover almost. But the creek is probably 20 yards wide. And I didn't realize how much the deer use that as a travel corridor. Like, even though there's no trees on this property and there's no place for them to really live, like they feel really comfortable down in that deep creek where you can't, it's, it's a 15-foot bank. They can't see it. You can't see down in it. So I kind of just followed him around for that week. Like, the farmer was in there all the time because they were picking crops. The farmer saw him one night, from the combine, because I think it was him. The way the farmer described him, I think it was him. So I kind of I kept getting these little breadcrumbs about him. And whenever the farmer, where he was combining, I was like, man, maybe he's going to come down on that big creek on the other property. So during gun season came in. So I actually just got a bucket and was where the farmer had stopped picking this other big field. There's a transition there from where the corn starts and the pick corn, comes out of the or whatever, where the pick corn is. And I'm going to go sit on that creek where that crop field is, where they stopped picking. And I'm like, maybe some does will be out there and the fresh cut corn, and maybe he'll be, on them somewhere. And
right.
So I was sitting there on a bucket, and I was it was again getting to where it was getting late, and I kind of look over out in the field, and there's a group of does that came out into the cornfield. And I'm like, all right. didn't have. I mean, it's kind of getting to where only had 15 minutes left, 10 minutes left to light. Like something's gonna have to happen real fast.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I look over to my right, and this buck is just walking down the middle of that creek. It's just like I heard water splashing is what I
Yeah,
heard.
sure.
I looked down, and he was just walking down the creek. I don't know if he was going to circle around to get on the other side of those does or what he was doing, or just wanted to kind of monitor him and get downwind of them. But I ended up shooting him at I was sitting on the edge of the creek looking down into it. Like I said, it's about a 15-foot drop down into the creek. Dan's been in that. It's a big creek,
Yeah.
and I shot him at I don't know. He was inside a bow range with a 30-06. But this deer, I was on him pretty consistently for 2 weeks. It was really fun hunting him. I wish I'd killed him with a bow, but I
Sure.
wasn't gonna. I was just ready to get him on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So quite the chess match that you
It
had with
was,
them there. I mean, from almost being able to do it with your trad bow, just taking one more step, like that heartbreak, those roller coaster moments that you have with a particular buck, when you think like this was my one and only shot,
Mm-hmm.
in that moment, and then, but changing the tactics up a little bit and doing what you need to do to get it done. I mean, that's very rewarding.
But again, he was not going to go out into that field in daylight. I don't think. He came out of the crop field, the standing corn, jumped down into the creek, and was just pacing back and forth in the creek. Like he was just waiting. I think.
For it to get dark.
Yeah. I don't know what else he would have been. I mean, because there was nothing down there. He was just kind of tinkering around down there. And I bet if it would have been dark, he probably would have hopped out of that creek and went into those does. But he was just monitoring them, I think. And I just got, I got lucky. I guess it was strategic in that I was like, okay, this is where I think the does are going to be. And I got to where, there was cover in that creek and everything else. But yeah, it was cool.
It's those key moments like that where you start to realize how cover works.
Yeah.
You know how cover works, but when something like that happens, it really locks it in. You start to understand that that's how the deer are going to travel when you're going to see a mature buck. Those younger ones just going to hop out or wherever. But my point is that when something like that goes down, that's one of those building blocks because you kind of puts it together, right? I mean, didn't it kind of set that in? Like they're going to be running this creek. That's how I'm going to hunt them. So did you see more bucks follow that type of pattern on that property? I know you hunted that property quite a bit.
Yeah. That property's so dependent on the crops that it's really finicky. Sometimes there's no deer there at all. Sometimes there is. But this year, and not just this year, but in years past, that creek is a really good place to be during the rut. During during just regular season, whatever you want to call it, when they're not rutting, it's not great. They don't have cover there. But if they want to get to from one spot to the next during the rut, they will definitely be in that creek, using that creek to kind of get to one place to the next. And I think they do a lot of keeping track of does, because there's always does out there. But yeah, it's something that I have. This is the only big buck I've killed on that creek though. So I don't know. It may just be that, it's not because of any reason that there's not always big bucks there. It's not like a great spot. This year was good because this particular year is because the farmer was getting crops out. Whenever either you get this little window during that time frame, it seems like. I don't know, Dan, maybe you'll disagree with this, but whenever the crops are all in, there's just too much there. It's a giant field. It's 400 acres of crops, and it's always corn. They never plant beans there. So it's it's either just a gigantic field of corn, or it's picked and there's nothing there at all. But if the farmer's a little bit slow usually, so he'll pick for a day and then you won't see him for a few days. And a lot of times, if you can find that window when there's half the field's out still, and they've got rid of some of the cover, you can kind of narrow them down a little bit out there.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, it's tough whenever the corn's in. And there's even more. There used to be a CRP field out there that was really good, and they turned it all into crops now too. So it's even more crop fields. But you just got to. be there at the right time.
Being on that property with you and hunting that property, it is way different than what I hunt here. In other places across the Midwest. I mean, it was a giant cornfield,
Mm-hmm.
basically, with that creek running through it or river, and very few trees.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, those bucks bed in the corn. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Where here, they're going to bed in the cover versus the corn.
Mm-hmm.
But because of your situation, so when that corn comes down, that is going to kind of limit them. Like
Yeah.
but you're saying that basically when there's a little corn standing, that's the best time.
I have seen that. Yeah. I've killed 2 big bucks out there, and the other one was the exact same scenario. I didn't kill him on the creek. I killed him up. I don't know, Dan, you hunted pretty close to where I killed him at, but up in this little patch of woods there's only other little patch of
I
woods.
wouldn't call that woods, but they're a little patch.
It's a little. I mean, it's whatever, maybe 50 yards by. I mean, it's little, but he was in there, that's not even on the property I can hunt. It's we just hunt on the outskirts of it. But that's the only time I've ever. My cousins and stuff have killed some. My cousins killed a decent buck out there, but it's just very situational out there. But I know the situation what it needs to look like out there to be
Mm-hmm.
to be good. So
They're good stuff.
Yeah, I guess to quick go back to what Dan was talking about before, like, when you can actually visually see a deer using cover a certain way, it's like you know what bucks are supposed to do or what you think they're going to do, but when you physically put eyes on them using cover in a certain way, like you said, Dan, that's that stepping stone. And I think it really, I know in my experiences, it's really opened my eyes to different scenarios where it's like, okay, expecting deer to use cover in this particular area, but until you actually see a mature buck doing it while in stand or you're scouting or whatever, it makes it really hard to lock in on that, when you're like, oh, I'm going to work these travel corridors a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, anything else you got going on, Josh? What else you got coming up here throughout the next several months before the season starts?
Oh, I don't know. I get pretty excited about deer hunting again this time of year after turkey season's gone and the bluegill and crappie kind of quit biting here in a little bit. And I'll start. I don't know. I thought about I got on that property out that I killed that deer. I was a couple years ago. I started running a mineral site out there, and I thought about going and messing with that again this year. But it's just I don't have much motivation to do that. But I don't know. This summer I'm going to do some glassing and spotlighting. Huck likes to go spotlighting and look for deer, so we're going to do more of that this year. And I bought a new spotlight, whatever, in the last year to do that more. And I still got a bucket list of things to do to this spring yet, if you want to call this spring still, but get some cameras collected that I let soak this year and go from there. There's a couple deer that I know live that I'm kind of excited about. But
do you run a fair amount of trail cameras?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just mostly regular SD card cameras.
Yeah.
I mean, not like some people run them, but like a dozen,
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a pretty good average amount in that. I mean, in fact, I've actually curtailed some of mine back a little bit because I just felt like I was too dependent on trail cameras and that. I got cell cameras on to give me a little bit of intel on my pieces. But outside of that, I don't try to overly obsess about them anymore. It used to be years ago, it was an obsession in that, I'd want to be out there checking cards and throughout the summer months and blowing up spots, unintentionally, but of course that happens. And I feel a lot better about going into the season, just laying eyes on certain bucks and that, knowing kind of generally what's in the area, for that early season. Cause it all changes throughout the season at least on my properties anyway. So,
Yeah.
I try to dial back the trail cameras, to an extent.
Yeah. I try to get them all situated and set up before it gets real hot, and we
Oh, yeah.
we have chiggers and stuff during the summertime down here, and it's, I don't know, it's miserable in the summertime.
Yeah. The deer flies. That's what get me. I know
Yeah.
I've over the last couple of years, I think I've grown some sort of like weird allergy to them. And that, I mean, a deer fly bite always hurts. But for the last, I would say maybe 4 or 5 years now, been doing these long hikes and stuff, mammoth marches and whatnot. And I've gotten bit a couple times to the point where like my hands, I can't make a fist, or it hurts to bend my elbow. I just swell up something fierce. It's kind of like that, like, with they say with bees or wasps and stuff, like the more times you get stung by them, you're not building up an immunity to it. It's getting worse. So
I just end up getting chiggers a few times a year is what ends up happening. I can't stay out of the woods, but
yeah.
yeah, I try to do your best. I don't know if you guys ever had chiggers, but it is miserable. I mean, it's
I
miserable.
Yeah, I've hunted in Ohio where they've had
I've never got them.
chiggers, but I don't think we really get them up here though, do we?
Usually if I walk in the woods and there's chiggers and they run.
Oh man, make sure never mind.
And I wanted to clarify something with the trail cameras.
Yeah.
What Josh does from what you do is different.
Yeah.
When I hunted down with Josh, with his trail cameras, for the most part, he just lets them soak and gets intel and learns about areas. I mean, I went into some areas with his advice, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I got a camera in there. It's been in there for like 6 months. Haven't checked it. You might want
Yeah.
to check that and see what's going on." And a camera would be kind of like in a spot where you could check it and then hunt it. You know what I mean? Without ever having burned the place. But if you're going in there checking that camera constantly,
Right.
or even once a month or something, you're getting sent in there constantly. I don't think Josh is doing that based on
Yeah.
what I see from cameras. Is
No,
that
I don't think I was insinuating that. I'm just going up with like what I used to do, just being obsessed with wanting to know,
right?
what bugs are out there.
A lot of people can't handle trail cameras.
Yeah.
That's going to probably piss some people off, but it's true.
Oh,
They can't
right.
handle it because the idea that it's out there getting intel and they want to know it so bad that they just think, well, I can creep over and check it. And, it does damage like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
So just give a real quick rundown on your thoughts on trail cameras, Josh.
Yeah, I put most of mine out this time of year, or like when I'm spring scouting, I'll do my best to make sure stuff's not going to grow up around it and whatnot. And unless I'm like, I'll maybe go like, I got intel, I know deer that lived last year. I know, I chased them around last year. They're probably going to be in the same areas. And I got everything, and that spot's ready to go. I don't have to do anything. I did that back in like February and March. And I'll just start like, based on the acorns, like I'll have to figure out what's going on in that manner. But like, I probably won't go check a trail camera in there. I'll just start hunting in there, but they'll be there. They'll be there to, if I walk by one or want to, if I'm real lost or something, I'll go check one. But I don't go before season really and check them or anything. I just I leave them there for whenever I come back in the spring to scout again. I'll check them and kind of get my intel then and go and base that on. Or like if I go in, like there's an area south of here like that I have some cameras in that I put in last spring that I let soak this deer season. I'll go collect those now and I'll study those and be like, okay, hey, I probably need to pay attention to this area, in the beginning of October or whatever the camera would tell me for that year. And then if I don't typically put them right where I'm going to hunt at, but like maybe if I'm going to walk by one or in like a little, travel area outside of some bedding, I'm going to have to walk by and then I'll, maybe I'll check one on the way into the stand to see if the caliber of deer are in there. But I usually have a pretty good idea of the caliber of deer in the area, just because I've got intel from the previous year. But like, I guess that would, like, if you're just starting to do that kind of thing with trail cameras, it's going to take you a couple years it's not that instant gratification type of trail camera strategy. It's more of a long term.
Yeah.
Do you lock them? Do you ever get cards stolen, cameras stolen?
No, Hoosiers, they don't commit them kind of sins, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't. I hang them high. I use, um,
You hang
I
them high. Are you talking about the cameras or the thieves?
the cameras. I hang them one stick high. I don't get crazy. Some people hang their trail cameras like 20 feet in the air. I don't. I used to have
You
one.
lose a little from height. I mean, the height is good. You don't see them. People don't see them, but you lose a little. You lose a little bit of your how much land you're covering,
Right.
Yeah,
and it's hard to determine rack size from straight up above them.
it's really hard. It takes like 20 inches off the deer, I think. That's
Mm-hmm.
probably exaggeration, but it takes it takes 10
Yeah, it
or
makes the tines look
Sure.
real short.
yeah, and thin. Um, but I hang them high, and I started, which I really like, is I take instead of my strap, I actually started carrying like baling wire with me, like wire, and I wire them to the tree, so there's not a big strap on it. And that really, I like that a lot. I think I like it better than like some guys use like paracord and things like that. You can't get them tight, and that baling wire, you can really just get them tight and they don't move, and that's what I do though. And I use it's a bracket. It's called a good sit mobile bracket, and it allows you to like pitch it down a little bit, so you're not messing with sticks and all that.
Yeah.
But I don't have a whole lot of issues now. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe once a year I'll have something happen. Usually it's a card stolen. That's what everybody likes to do, is just take your SD card.
Get the intel that you collected.
Yeah,
You did the work for them.
yeah,
At least could put a fresh one in there for you.
yeah. Right. But no, I don't have too big of an issue with it. There's so many there's so many cameras in the woods anymore too. It's like I don't know who's stealing these things anymore. Like, just go buy one for $15 at Walmart.
Yeah, they've gotten so cheap. But yeah.
I don't think they're stealing it because they want your camera. I think they're stealing it because they're like competing with you for the spot. I think it's a ego thing.
Yeah. Have you guys had cameras messed with in Wisconsin?
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Last year I ran halfway across the state to catch some guy messing with my cell cam, and I think he was in the end. I think he was just joking, but I got a picture of him going at the camera like this.
Oh,
so I raced over there, and I knew I could get to the parking lot before he could get out of there. And there's two cars there, and I tracked one guy down, and it obviously wasn't him. And I had a picture of him, And then I tracked the other guy down, and he still was pretty close to the camera, and went straight to him, and then just went right up to him. You messing with my camera? Did you take my camera? He's like, I didn't take your camera. I was just joking. It was just a joke. And he goes, I didn't take your camera. And I went over there, the camera was still there. So, and then he kind of beelined it to his truck and took off. I was pretty aggressive about it. But I mean, if you're going to steal cameras, I mean, I'm going to, with a cell cam, you're pretty stupid.
Did you know who you were?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, well, because that would have been a great story. Like, I got attacked by the hunting beast in the woods.
I had a guy steal a cell camera and didn't ever turn it off. I got it back.
Oh, those are the best.
Yeah.
That is, I saw one, I feel like 6 months ago, there was like this, somebody had posted it, and then they had like a steady stream where they didn't even know that the cell cam was running in their house, and they're like smoking meth in front of it. They're just doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And this guy's just posting all this stuff from all the things that are going on in this house, while this cell camera that they stole off of, some public piece, was just running and just recording all, because he had it in video mode too. So they're like dancing, they're partying the Skinnerd and doing just in some trailer somewhere down south. It was hilarious. I'm like,
Jeez.
It was good. The comments were gold too. So
mine wasn't that exciting. It was in a guy's dash for a long time.
I like those ones where they put the paint bombs in them, and the guy opens the door and he gets blasted.
Yeah,
on that, I'd probably use a 12 gauge though.
Little buckshot.
We had a guy in Wisconsin who somebody kept breaking into his cabin up north, and he'd get a TV, he'd get some stuff like a microwave and stuff. He'd come up there and his door would be open and all of his stuff would be gone. And he'd refurnish it. And a year later, somebody break in there and steal all his stuff. And he knew it was the same guy. He always got in the same way. He'd push out one of these little square windows in the basement, go in there and unlock the window and crawl in there and steal everything. So he put a coniber trap in that square window cutout and left the window glass out and bolted it to the wall. And he caught that guy in a coniber trap, like you catch a coon. And the guy was apparently like for a day or something, or half a day, was chained to his wall. And he actually got in a lot of trouble for that.
Yeah.
Law went after him for doing that. So he got in more trouble than the thief.
Yeah, and that's crazy. That's just. But I guess there's some laws against booby trapping your house.
The trouble is you got to get there before the law does, because you got to take care of it. You got to make sure they never find the guy.
Right, we're gonna have to really take this last third of the show and really kind of do maybe some editing here. So,
just good advice.
Just some solid advice.
Legal advice from the beast.
We'll start a segment for that. Yeah, thieves are the worst, absolute worst. Like, just keep your hands to yourself, and if it's not yours, don't mess with it. People you get this a lot too with tree stands, right? Left up on public land. And there's always these debates whether, and here in Wisconsin, there's different areas where you can and you can't. And I don't know, is that a thing in Indiana as far as leaving stands up?
You're allowed to in Indiana.
You are,
You got like 30 days after season to get them out of the woods.
Okay. So do you guys actually bring out ladder stands and stuff and set them out there?
Well, I don't. People do though.
Yeah, but people do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, is that a situation where you Hoosiers leave each other's crap alone? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I have no desire to have to. I don't know. I don't know that part. I don't know if people get their stand stolen or not. I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't think so.
People in Indiana are like different than Wisconsin. They're just super nice. You remember that guy when I went to Indiana? He wanted me to stay at his house. So he didn't even know. He had no idea about my show or anything. And he was like a gas station attendant, and he's like, "You're going to be camping while you hunt?" He's the guy that fills your gas, because they still got those kind of people there. And he's like, "You're going to be? What are you doing? You camping?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He was just too cold for that. And he's like pacing around like he's upset. And he comes back. He's like, "I tell you what, you can stay at my house. We got an extra room. My wife will feed you in the morning." And this guy doesn't even know me. And it's like, in Wisconsin, you'd never get an offer like that.
Did he actually have a wife when you got there, though?
I didn't go there.
Oh.
Did not take him up. I kind of like camping in the cold.
Yeah, I don't think I would do it either. You never know. I've watched too much true crime stuff over the years. You just never know. Like, you get there and like, where's this wife of yours? And it's just this dude, or he comes out and now he's in a dress.
Yeah.
Introducing himself as his wife.
You got experience with that?
No, I've just said I watch enough of these documentaries and stuff.
Yeah.
But,
I know the conservation officers they tell me they try to keep up on like that 30 days after season rule. I don't know, but
yeah,
there was a guy, one of them kind of was wanting me to look, because he knows I'm in the woods a lot, and he was asking me to send him pins of stuff that's out in the woods still. I never do, but I don't know if the COs would take them down or not.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it all goes back to, if it's not yours, leave it alone. Like, regardless if somebody else is breaking the law, or breaking some sort of rule.
Yeah.
You're not judge, jury, and executioner. Like, just move on. And
one good thing about tree stands and left in spots is exactly where that guy's hunting.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing mobile like we are. They're rotating through stands. So maybe they got one or two of them, but exactly where he's hunting, and then you can kind of pinpoint what the deer are doing based on that guy.
Yeah.
Instead of being jealous of like that guy having the spot or getting 2 miles back without having to carry a stand in and out, mark it down. This is where this guy's hunting.
Mm-hmm.
What are the deer going to do because of this?
Yeah,
use that to your advantage.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Very good. Very good. You guys got anything else or?
I'll add one last closing thing about tree stands. Me and Tyler Big Hunt, for everybody that knows who that is, we went bear hunting one time, and there's this tree stand. It was a ladder stand that was left up on public land illegally, and every time we go out to bait this one spot, that ladder stand would be there, and somebody had stolen the bottom rung. Either that or they took it with them so that they could just bring it back when they hunted and nobody else could hunt the stand or something.
Sure.
But we're walking by there and just goofing off. I'm like, I'm going to climb up there and look around once, because it was a pretty high ladder stand. But you had to jump to get to that first rung, and I jumped up there and I pulled myself up there and climbed up onto the top of that ladder stand. And I was standing up there, and the cables broke, and I fell like 15 feet. And here somebody had cut almost completely through both cables on purpose to make it break when somebody sat there. And I actually got pretty screwed up. I grabbed the tree when I went down, and I got slivers in my chest and my arms and stuff, and got all scraped up and hurt my my knee pretty bad.
Mm.
That's the thing. You leave something out there, somebody can screw with you like that. I don't know who would do something like that, because it seems like almost attempted murder to me. But
Man, I don't know. I've heard so many stories, maybe not necessarily like that, but when it comes to public land, and I'm surprised, and maybe you've touched on this in the past, Dan, with how much public land you've hunted over the years in terms of like parking lots or parked alongside roads. I have talked to a handful of guys that have had 2x4s with nails buried along this, the side of the road, where it's a known spot for guys to park to get into public pieces. Just nails and screws dumped in certain areas, whether that's other hunters or that's anti-hunters, that's left to be, there's no way of knowing for sure. But have you come across anything like that?
I haven't.
Or have you heard stories
that at all? But I've heard stories of people having their tires slashed or windows smashed out, things like that. I have not yet, knock on wood, had that happen to me. I've obviously ran into some very weird people in the woods, where you get a little sketched out.
Sure. Yeah, Jason Schrader, who co-founded Midwest with me, and who had just recently passed away here. It had happened to him on more than one occasion where he'd have, flat tires from, parking alongside known public hunting spots here in Southeast Wisconsin and that. So, Josh, is that anything, have you ever heard stories of that or any?
Oh yeah, I've heard stories of it, but
yeah, but he's from Indiana. They're nice there.
Well, I've been all around the country hunting deer. I've never had any.
When you've been up in Wisconsin, you've heard some of these stories.
Kentucky, I've had some weird things happen in Kentucky, but never anything bad happened. Just felt like something bad was going to happen,
People are so nice in Indiana. I was thinking about going and hanging out at Gary for a while.
Mm-hmm. I don't know about you. Got to come to Southern Indiana.
Hey, the dunes are a nice area.
I don't think I'd recommend that, but
the dunes are a nice area.
Yeah.
But you're just right on the edge.
Yeah, you're awful close to Illinois up there. Some of that bleeds over.
Correct.
No, I've never had anything super bad happen. I mean, I can't think of anything. It's just some weird things. I asked for permission to hunt on a property in Kentucky and got yelled at for just some lady just being kind of, just
Karen.
Yeah, she just was not happy I was hunting, I think. But other than that, that's it. She told me she was going to, her husband was a cop, and he was going to arrest me if I even came down the road again. All right, lady.
Oh, I love when those things get out. I just love watching those kinds of videos. I mean, I hate that kind of stuff happens, but I love watching when like fishermen get it on video because they're fishing too close to somebody's pier and some Karen comes marching down, from her $5 million house, and she thinks she owns, the whole bay that this guy's fishing in, and just harassing. And I mean, I get a kick out of that stuff. And more times than not, the fishermen or whatever the case is, they're typically they start out very respectful, and then it gets to a point where it's like, all right, I'm going to a few more casts, I'll move on. And they just won't let it go. And I'm going to call the cops. It's like, all right, fine. Then go ahead, call the cops. I'm not moving anymore. Like, because the cops aren't going to do anything. They're not even going to bother coming out here.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're the one that's going to end up getting the ticket if the DNR comes out or, for harassment.
You guys had that weird lady yelling at Eric and Savannah,
Last gun
right?
season, yeah, screaming at all of us, and every time we'd shoot at a deer, she'd scream again. And I wish we would have got it on film, because I'd have probably turned her in for hunter harassment, because it was pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some crazy people out there. It's a crazy world, and it's getting crazier and crazier all the time. I mean, I think it's something we're all going to need to continue to navigate through as time goes on, because the crazies are moving further and further out into the bush, if you will. So, well, this has been a good show, and glad that Josh, you and I have spoke a couple times. In fact, I think the first time we met was at Deer Fest some years ago. You came and talked to me about, I was working with Tacticam at the time, and you had come over asking about some of the point of view cameras and that.
Yeah,
so,
it goes on your bow or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. So I think that was the first time we met, but it was nice to chat with you here on the show. And I know all the viewers love you and follow you over there at Before the Echo, and doing great things over there. So look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on anytime.
Absolutely. Any last words, Dan, or should we call it a night?
Josh.
All right, guys. We'll see you again next week for an all-new episode of the Hunting Beast Report.